If you want to find out how round 7 of the palette roulette went and make your picks for round 8, then stick around. Hi there, it's Hélène, and I have been so looking forward to reporting back on round 7 of the palette roulette. It has been over 3 weeks. I have used the heck out of a bunch of products, and I am so excited to report back on all the selections that you have made for me. If you are not sure how the palette roulette works, well, first off, welcome to this video series. And essentially what we do is out of 3 different categories of products, eye palettes, face and lip palettes, and then an other category of kind of wild miscellaneous products, you get to pick what it is that I'm going to be wearing over the next number of weeks based on a range of numbers. And I will put a timestamp right here as far as where I start off with the selection process for round 8. But what we're going to do first off is talk about all of the products that I used over the last 3 weeks or didn't use enough of, frankly, and show you a bunch of pictures here of the looks that I was able to capture. I am wearing the palettes that you selected as well on my face today, and I will go over what it is that I'm wearing as well. We have a total of 9 products to go over from 3 different people. And I'm going to go person by person, I think, because it was kind of a grouping of products from each person out of the 3 categories. I'm going to go right off the hop with Julie's picks. And Julie selected the eye palette that was the Shapematters palette from Smashbox. I'll get to it in a second. The Quo Bombshell Contour palette, one of my faves, and the ColourPop 5 crayon set of very neon gel liners. So first off, let's talk about the palette, which is the majority of my eye look today. The palette itself comes with a brush and a big mirror. It's really great for travel, and it's one that I very often recommend for travel because it has your brow product, your face products, and a set of 9 shadows that go from neutral to cool to deep. And I really enjoy Smashbox powders for the face and for the eyes. So today's look is a lot of these 2 right here. This is inner lid, center lid, and I also have on the brow bone this champagne color as well as this matte beige color. And I also have Sumatra, Sumatra on the outer lid and crease. Sometimes I use a different color, but in this case today I definitely used Sumatra. The thing is, I used Sumatra in my other palette. So instead of using this shadow, which is barely touched, I decided to go into this one, and this is my very well used. I'm not going to show you the rest of the palette, spoiler alert on that, but I did use this one, which is a Sumatra that, sorry about the light, the Sumatra that I have been digging into for quite a while. I didn't see why for the same eyeshadow I would go and mess up 2 of them. Once you really start digging into a pan, it's more compromised, less solid than a pan that's been untouched. So I thought I'd just poke around in one of them as opposed to 2. And it's from the same brand, Sumatra, and I did check to make sure that they were the same color, and indeed they are. I ended up using this palette a lot over the last number of weeks. Yesterday I did a very cool toned look with these 2. That was really quite nice, and I complemented with a couple of shadows from my Pan That palette, the cool tone shadows from that palette, and I really enjoyed that. I really quite like this color that is on my center lid. I think it's really nice, and the color of that one, or it's called Platinum, surprise, surprise that I like it. And another one that I wore a couple of times actually is Posh. And given I had so many shadows to choose from, the fact that I would go back into some colors is really saying something, because I had no lack of color options this time around, let me tell you. I also, now I could have used these powder products. I didn't, because I had a matte cream, a contour, and a bronzer in my Quo contour palette, so that's what I defaulted to, but I didn't have a highlighter. So if I wasn't using my cream highlighter that I'm trying to focus on, I was using this highlighter right here, and quite liked it. And it's just called Highlight. There's no special name to it. I did not use the brow products because I used the brow product selection by Steph, and we'll get to her picks later. So that is the palette from Julie, and I really ended up working halfway with half the time with cool tones, half the time with warm tones out of this palette, but it solidified for me that it's a solid palette for just about anybody. It's basic, but I don't mind basic palettes. I think that it's nice to have, if you don't have to have a palette that has everything. I like to pair a basic palette with a boom palette, and that is exactly what I had actually in this set of palette options this time around. This one being my basic palette by default, and then another one that really helped me amp up any look with a very solid, well-blended, well-executed base of neutrals. The next palette that Julie had selected is this Quo, and I love the design of this. It's so pretty. It is a 3-pan of matte powder products. You've got your bronzer, your contour, and your matte highlight. I didn't use this one so much. I did use it once in a while when I wanted just matte highlight and nothing shiny on my face. I really enjoyed the contour. I have all three, no, that's not true. I don't have this one on today, but I have the other two on my face. I did the contour here and on the sides of my nose. I used the bronzer on my temples, on my cheekbones, and again on the side of my nose. I also use contour under my lip. I've talked about that before. I have small lips, so it helps project them forward, give the impression that I have a bigger lower lip than I do, and I really like that. And like I said, for the highlight, I tended to go into the Shapematters palette for the shinier contour, unless I wanted specifically a matte look. Now, for the last product that Julie selected, I said it was the 5 liners from ColourPop, and I did swatch them in the intro video, which I didn't even link to the intro video yet, so right here you can see me revealing these products if you like, and I did swatches of all of them, and I just want to swatch one of them right now, and it's this one, and it's the one that I tried. And I did try on one look, or in one look, to put this in my waterline. It doesn't work. It doesn't budge on the hand, but it really did not want to stay in my waterline, and I was really disappointed because that was what I was going to use them for. And I have to admit, I only tried the green, which is a mistake of mine. And I think that I will try them again, but I think that these may be, I may be able to use them as a base for another product on top. And I do use that method with some other liners that I have, but they didn't meet or match my intention with them, and I think I'm going to keep them in the rotation because I would like to use them some more. But yeah, and I am disappointed. I won't say yet that I'm disappointed in the product. I think I'm disappointed that my first impression of using the liners led me to not want to use them. And I think that, especially for somebody who does videos like this, I'm kind of disappointed that I didn't try harder with these. So Julie, I will keep them in, and I will try to use them in some looks. I heard they stain the waterline, so I don't know if it's just my eyes or what, but darn it, I'm gonna figure out how to make these work. Next up, we have Susan's picks, and Susan picked, this is going to be too harsh, but she picked a nemesis of mine. Again, it's too harsh. But she picked the Shiny Pretty Things in Rose by MAC. This was a palette that I picked up last Christmas. And it looks like this. 9 shadows, and it does have a mirror. And I did not have high hopes for this palette. And I ended up using every single one of the colors in this palette, including this last one as a liner in at least one look. And I was always disappointed in it. In part, really, this red irks me because it doesn't really show up as red on the eye. It shows up more like metallic orange, orangey red, and it tends to make your eyes look a little bit sick, in my opinion. It's not the best, although I did wear it in a video. But here's the thing. I ended up giving this palette a really, really fair shot and used a lot of these colors right here. I enjoyed this color. I enjoyed these 2 colors back here. I have turned this palette from a foe to a friend, believe it or not. So this palette has served as a reminder for me that first impressions, or not first impressions, but short-term impressions can be misleading, and that we should revisit things in our makeup collection that we think we don't like, because we could be wrong. It could be our mood on the days that we tried it. It could be a quick comparison compared to something else that we're liking, a texture or a look or a color that we prefer at that point in time. I won't say that it's a top palette of mine. That would be a lie. I would just say that the formula in the shadows is better than I initially thought. And though I have one color in this palette that I'm not 100% on, it's 1 out of 9. I can definitely work with the other colors and still dip into that red once in a while. The purpley brown is solid, the pink is solid, the other couple of shimmers that are kind of a taupey and a chocolate brown, they're fine. This matte, these actually 2 matte colors are quite nice and they blend beautifully. So I really think that this is going to be, in my view, more of a neutral option in my makeup collection, and that it is a relatively small palette that I could consider taking with me when I need a smaller palette on the go. Definitely some decent looks that come out of this palette. Is it great? No. Is it good? I have to say that it's good. Is it a good example or of what MAC can do? I have no idea, because this was my first MAC palette. I do have the other palette that my friend did gift to me, and so I will be playing with that one some more. But I'm glad I played with this one again, and so I appreciate, Susan, the fact that you picked that number, and that this is what ended up in my lap for the last 3 weeks. Now, for Susan's second pick, it ended up being the ABH Radiant palette. If you'll recall, the previous round, round 6, I ended up with the gradient of this format. And this one is for the light to medium skin tone. The gradient is for medium to deep, although I like the gradient better. And Susan actually said she liked the gradient better as well. I used every single one of these blushes. Every single one of them, based on pairing it with my eye look, looked great. Today I am wearing this one right here, which is Coastline. I used this one the least, and I used these 2 the most because I do like slightly deeper blushes. They're all fine. They all look fine. I have zero problem with these blushes. I think they apply well, they build well. They're not, I don't like to have overly pigmented right off the hop. They build great, just like the gradient did. I'm very happy that I got these a couple, I think it was, I don't think it was last holiday, I think it was 2 years ago, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, just a nice solid blush quad. And I think that when it comes to blushes, you may not agree, but to me, there's not that much differentiation between brands. Of course, if it's patchy and doesn't apply, that's different. But as far as the powder consistency, I find that blushes from one brand to another, as long as it's a decent blush, I don't have preferences across companies. I find that blushes overall tend to work just fine from inexpensive to high end, and this was a really good deal. I think it ended up being for me $27 for blushes, which I thought was a very decent price. And yeah, I'm really happy with this, and I would have no hesitation to pick up other Anastasia blushes. I think I have 11 Anastasia blushes at this point. Yeah, I really like the formula in general from different collections. They're great. And finally, some of you saw me struggle with these in this video. I said it was no joke, and boy, was it not. I ended up with a very interesting look. I got some compliments on it, so thank you for those of you who commented on that look. It was a challenge to create, but I was very happy with it in the end. And what I did was I used Margarita, which I have since revived. You will see it's a lot creamier than when I was using it during that video. I didn't realize that it was that dry, and I'm so happy because it is the color out of the 5 that I like the most. And I thought, well, it's dry and almost unusable, so let me see if I can revive it. If it wrecks it, Tarte was having these as a 2-for-1 on their site, so I thought, well, let me try to revive it, and if it doesn't work, well, the sale is on. But I was able to revive it, and I was pretty happy about that. And I had used this color, Margarita, along with Merlot, which is this one. And that one does not need any reviving. It worked just great. And these are just like the iMagic palette from the previous round of Roulette. They're great to build a base to then put eyeshadow over top. And it can look a little bit crazy when you're first applying it, but just keeping in mind what you're putting on top just keeps you kind of calm, and you get it done, and it looks great. One that I really thought I was going to use is Lucky Penny, and I didn't. I'm kind of surprised I didn't. And I did on another occasion use Camo Cool for a base as well. And the one that I plan on using after this round is Brown. And I have an idea for it, and it will be popping up on my eyes in a future video. I do recommend the clay pots or any of these kind of cream eyeshadows. I think that they tend to work well. The only thing is, I would probably suggest for anyone who doesn't have any to start with one and see if it can become part of your habits as going under eyeshadows or used as an eyeshadow in and of itself, because I think that it can be hard to turn it into a habit. It's counterintuitive, it takes a bit more time, and not everybody's going to be in for it, unless you're using a very light color, in which case you can use your finger and just kind of get that gradient well without having to do any other shadows. But for those really deep colors, it does take a little bit of practice and getting over the slight moment of nervousness and uncertainty when you think it's gone terrible and it's just one of the steps in the process. But I like them and will certainly continue to use them, as well as some that I have from other brands, including Makeup Forever, for example. I think they're a good product, and I really enjoyed using them over the last couple weeks. Now, Steph picked the eyeshadow palette that truly was the belle of the ball this time around, and it is the Urban Decay Heavy Metals palette. And I had used this palette prior to this palette Roulette, but I'm going to say now, after the full 3 weeks of using these various palettes, that I hadn't used this palette. I can now say I have used this palette, and it made me very happy. So I'm going to go one side at a time. There are 20 shadows. I'll show you the full palette just real quick so you can see the whole thing, but I don't want to blind you. So I'm going to use one side at a time. This side is the side I thought I would not use as much. And I used virtually all of them. Let's see what I didn't use. Yeah, I know I didn't use base. So that is the one out of all of these that I did not use at all. And I have some favorites for sure. Acoustic is the one that I put over Margarita for that really crazy, awesome look. And I really enjoyed Scream. Scream looks fantastic as a topper on the inner decenter lid on a cool look. I always love reds, so that is not a not something that is unusual for me. So I went to this one almost immediately at the very beginning, and I ended up using Rhody as well. Really enjoyed that, but I used these with far more zeal and enthusiasm than I thought I ever would. Not having used these so much, I'm not surprised, but these guys right here really surprised me how much I love them. And it's probably because I didn't expect to be using them. Like, for example, Acoustic, as I mentioned, I used as a topper. I also used Angel Fire as a topper. And they worked really well as a topper, not only as a shadow in their own right. Really impressed with this side. Did not think that I would use that side as much. Now, for the side that I knew I was going to use, I did not go for the gunmetal colors. I just didn't feel like, so this one, and this one, I really didn't go for. And there was one look where I really thought I was going to use Mullet, and then this one down here, Twisted, together, kind of like the look I did for, or with the Violet Voss Like a Boss palette. And I decided not to because I felt like I had done that look already on this channel, but they were calling to me for that kind of a look. I really enjoyed, was it Spandex? Yeah, Spandex, Metalhead, and Punk Rock. Quite enjoyed these. For some reason, I did not use the blues, although I swatched them a number of times. I really thought I was going to go for Amp, but for some reason I didn't. But still, I mean, to have used Mullet and Spandex and Metalhead and Punk Rock, the fact that I really honestly chose not to go for these. I'm really pleased with the fact that I used half of the colors on that side as well. Yeah, pretty happy with that. So 2, 3, 4, 5, well, 6 out of 10 I didn't use, but I am very pleased with what it is that I did. And I think that part of why I didn't want to use the smoky colors, the silver, the kind of a grayish silver and the black, was because I felt like I had enough neutral looks going on that I just wasn't in the mood to do a neutral look with the heavy metals. Heavy metals was my complementary color palette for everything else that I was using. And I'm really happy with the way I used this palette, and I have no regrets. If anything, I was super excited to be using this palette as much as I was. And if I liked this palette before this round of palette roulette, I like it even more having used it over the past 3 weeks. And really, its presence in the palette roulette actually resulted in me not using as much the other products that Steph had chosen for me, and I'll get to those in a minute. I'm just going to go into the face and lip palette first. Now for the lip and face palette, I did not remove this one, which is the Quo Brow palette, and I probably should have removed it from the rotation because it was my day-to-day go-to palette for eyebrows. This is what it looks like. And here's the problem. If it's my day-to-day palette, it means that that was what you could see in my eyebrows all the time, every day. So putting it in the palette roulette is kind of silly because The palette roulette is supposed to give you variety, and I was not going to give you variety if this ended up in my usage in the 3 weeks. So I asked Steph if she was okay if I used something different in my brow case, and what I said I would use, because I know she's a big fan, is the Anastasia Brow Wiz. And it has been very well loved. This is what it looks like. It's very, very tiny. I have it in my brows today, and it has a spoolie on the other side. I really like this product, there's no question. I do tend to save it for travel because you get to just bring this. Although the last time I traveled, I did bring this one, and probably because for a brow palette, it is relatively compact. But there's no argument that a pencil would be a lot less room. So I very much enjoyed using the Brow Wiz. And now for my sheepish admission at my lack of use for Steph's third selection. I did not use these. I think I used one at the very, very beginning. But again, I feel like I've got a really good reason. I had so many fantastic metallic and heavily shimmer products in heavy metal or heavy metals palette from Urban Decay that I just didn't feel the need to have more bling on my eye. Every single time I went into those eyeshadows, I had bling. And so these were competing with the very bright or very interesting colors from the Heavy Metals palette. So I want to keep these in, and I'm going to be keeping these in at the same time as the ColourPop liners, and I really have to roll up my sleeves and use those products because they deserve center stage. They're really, really good products, just like the Cover FX Shimmer Veils were last round. So I do want to use them. I will use them, and I'm excited. I really like these products. It's just the Heavy Metals was just getting my attention. And like I said, if anything, it just tells you I really like that palette, and how great is that? There's a palette I really love in my collection. So I'm going to be giving these their fair shake, and yeah, so those plus the ColourPop crayons are staying in the rotation as I mentioned, and I do want to use more of the razor sharp liners that Julie had picked last time around as well. I did mention that I wanted to keep those in the rotation, and same thing though happened to them as happened to these was the Heavy Metals palette. So I'm going to be putting that Heavy Metals palette back and using these in its stead. So those were the looks. I would be so curious to know which one was your favorite out of all of the looks I created over the last 3 weeks. Please let me know. I really appreciate hearing everybody's opinion, and I'm really looking forward to the next round of looks. So with that, let's right away get into selecting the next round. So here's how it works. I am going to be listing 3 categories down here with the range. For each one of the 3 categories, I need 2 things. I need the category name and the number that you are selecting. And please take a look or listen to the ranges I'm going to be giving you, because if you go outside that range, I can't select your number. As well, we're not a huge group, so please take a look at previous comments that are in the comments section for numbers that have already been selected. Because if you select something that's already been selected, it's first come, first serve. If you select something that's already been selected, I can't credit you for the selection because you're selecting a duplicate. I hope that makes sense. So let me give you the ranges. Oh, and before I forget, if there is a story, something about the reason you chose the numbers you chose, please let me know in that comment, and let me know if you want me to share it or not in the next video, the selection video, because I think that is so cool. When numbers mean something to folks and that's why you pick them, I love hearing that, and I think that others too get a kick out of hearing the associations that we have to various numbers. I don't know, it's part of the human condition, and I think it's great. So why not share? So let me know if there's a story behind the numbers you've selected. Here we go. first category is eyeshadow palettes. Yes, I have a lot of them. You can pick between 1 and 78. 1 and 78. And just to be clear, the palettes that I have already used are taken out of the rotation. So 1 to 78 will be palettes that I have not used so far in rounds 1 to 7. Second category, face and lip palettes. You can pick a number from 1 to 8. 1 to 8 for face and lip palette, which is the second category. And finally, we have the other category. And for the other category, you can pick a number from 1 to 9. 1 to 9. And what is in the other category? It is eyeliners, it is liquid eyeshadows, it is anything that is a topper or an enhancer that would not fit into a face, lip, or eyeshadow palette category. I hope that this is clear and that it makes sense. I am going to cut it off at 4 people max, so it's first come, first serve for those selections. So please be quick in commenting below. And in 3 or 4 days, however many days it takes for folks to give me their comments and selections, I will be coming back and announcing the products that I'll be using in this upcoming round. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it every time. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. But for now, take care.